Okay, we are live, so to speak. So tired.
We're all
well. I have to say this. It's a miracle that, because and not to bore people with my travel travails when it comes to getting to Toronto. When it comes to getting to Toronto, but to be able to get here before the morning skate, I basically have to leave by, I would say, at the absolute latest 7, and I would say earliest 6:30 to catch the express train. So I stayed up and watched the entire game last night, and then Russ can attest to this because we were texting back and forth. I could not get to sleep, and it was 3 a.m. and I'm like, screw this. I'm just going to stay awake through the night and leave at 6 in the morning.
Wow.
And I fell asleep, and luckily I fell asleep with my phone on my chest, and I had set the alarm for 6 a.m. and it was this little speaker on the phone was right near my ear, and I woke up. It's a miracle I got here on time.
Wow, be careful, man. That's a lot. You don't want to drive when you're that tired. That's nuts.
No, I loaded up with a triple shot espresso, and I'm good to go now.
There you go.
It was something though. Let's get this show, and then we'll start. We'll talk about that. Then we'll move on to rumors here. Are we ready? Let's see.
Beautiful.
Really must have been something. All right, February 22nd. That's the date. Hello, Hockey World. It is Thursday, February 22nd, 2018.
I'm Michael Agello on location.
I'm Peter Tessier in Winnipeg.
I'm Russ Cohen in New Jersey.
And I'm Eklund under the great Pennsylvania sky. And you're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in the comings and goings in the hockey world. And we are going to start with, for sure, the great game from last night, the women's Olympic game. And I don't know, am I the only one who gets super emotional watching this game?
No, I got emotional.
I'm like tearing up as I'm watching this. And I'm like, holy cow! Like, what? It maybe is it? And it's funny because I remember, the last time it was the same thing. Like in Sochi. Sochi was like, if I remember, the game was like at 6:30 in the morning here.
Mm-hmm.
So and this one's at 3:30. This is like ends at like 3 in the morning here practically. And I'm just like, I'm somewhere, I'm sitting there, in my, in our like theater room with the big TV and everything. So I'm by myself, and I'm just like, I'm losing it. I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Second time in a row. It's so friggin' crazy emotional.
Yeah, I tear up at all sorts of sports when you think about these, young athletes and what they put into it just to get up there. That's the beauty of the Olympics is you sort of get an emotional attachment, not just to the country, but to the athletes themselves and what they go through.
Yeah, I definitely tear up during the half pipe. I have to say, it's national pride, and 4 years ago, and I'm a proud American, and I love Canada. Canada is my second favorite country, but when it's Canada versus U.S., I really I'm rooting for the U.S. and the men's team was an embarrassment, like we talked about yesterday. And after 4 years ago, when they were up late and lost the lead, and then lost in overtime, that was particularly heartbreaking. And I remember Tim and Sid, the show on Sportsnet, I think they were doing their show during that game, and they went wild in the studio, and as they should, because Canada won an improbable game. Last night was, as I tweeted out at about 2 o'clock in the morning, sweet revenge. It was the U.S. I didn't think played well in regulation. They turned it on late, got the tying goal, and then in overtime, I thought they were dominant. I thought they were dominant
from the point that Canada took the lead. Like, I think the second they played really incredibly cautious and nervous until Canada took the lead at 2-1. And when Canada took the lead at 2-1, they started taking all kinds of chances. And when they took chances.
Yeah, I felt like they only were dominant in overtime. But I'll say this. I mean, I interviewed Jocelyn Lamoureux 4 years ago before Sochi.
Yeah.
And, she was hopeful. I interviewed Brianna Decker in January. And she brought up the 20-year drought to me. I wasn't even bringing it up. She brought it up to me. I've interviewed a bunch of the people on the team, and so I feel like I know them and know their plight.
Yeah,
and because of that, I did feel a lot.
That's what it is. I got to know them in Vancouver, and I got to talk to them and got to figure out how much the teams hate each other, and it's legitimate hate. It's not.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they say they have respect for each other, but they kind of don't in a good way. You know, like in a good they I mean, they do probably at the end of the day, but they also. I mean, a lot of them played it. A lot of them are teammates in college. You know, like they know each other.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I thought I did a good job of the last couple of days saying how good, you know, Maddie Rooney is, and she even went over and above that. But again, you know, the biggest thing for this team is, you know, Jim Johansson's gone. He was a part of the process where he helped pick this team, and they changed it up. They got rid of a lot of popular people, and as a result, a lot of young players, not a lot, a few young players were inserted, and that was the good change because Canada was dead on their feet in overtime. Dead.
It wasn't even a game in overtime. You know, and let me speak for all Canadians here who are watching the Buzzcast. If you think that Canada was the better team, you watched the wrong game. And in particular in overtime, and you know, there, you know, people are, you know, it's an emotional thing and people are upset, but to lose in a shootout is really not losing. It is losing, but there's nothing to hold your head down. Yeah, you want to win, but the ladies on both teams, they played a heck of a game. They put their heart and soul into it. Mistakes are made. I think there's some legit concerns that Canadians should have with some of the coaching tactics and OT, some of the way they were shifting, some players who weren't getting on the ice. I think there's some fair things to say about that. And I think the Canadians were a little bit outcoached in OT, along with being outplayed. And I think that's fair. And as I tweeted out last night, that move by Lamoureux in the shootout took a massive pair of ovaries to do.
Yeah, no, that was that was insane. I mean, that was an unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, outside in move, and just and also, you know, and Amanda Kessel's move was amazing as well. Like her little you know, head deke like this just totally froze him. It was just, and you know, and the Twins were incredible all night long.
They were, and they got extra shifts, and that was a big deal because I think they sort of got away from how good they were early on too.
Well, I have to give Pierre Maguire credit because in the third, like in the middle of the game, he saw that the Twins were the most effective pairing, or that line was the most effective line, and he was basically saying, you know, the U.S. has got to get away from playing this guy or this girl and that girl and play them more. And in the third period, Rob Stauber did play them more, and then when you got to the overtime, I mean, I think there were 3 really great chances for the U.S. and the only thing I was worried about as somebody rooting for the U.S. was the last 2 minutes of the game when Canada got the power play. It's like they dominate the overtime and then watch Canada will win on the power play.
That felt like a familiar thing. Like they were going to get that power play, they were going to win the game, but also they didn't play. They hardly played Poulin on that power play at all, which was pretty crazy. Like, you know,
I think she was gassed.
A very long shift before that. I think that's.
But didn't they have a timeout or something? Couldn't they have called a timeout?
They had a timeout, but here's the thing: you had older players on the Canadian side, like Lisa Laflamme, barely saw any ice time in the third period, and they threw her out for 1 shift in the OT. That's not on the coach. That's just because she can't keep up with the pace of the game anymore.
Yeah, and the move in the shootout by Lamoureux was apparently dubbed "Oops, I Did It Again" in reference to the Britney Spears song. And even James Van Riemsdyk, when asked by the Toronto media this morning, was like, "Wow, that's a move." And there are going to be NHL players that copy that move.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, she went full Patrick Kane. That's what she did.
Yeah.
And you know what? When I can't remember who it was, the Canadian lady who went full Forsberg.
That was great.
You know, he's like, it was like, okay, you go Forsberg, I'm going Kane.
Yeah.
And she and to do it as the first shot, right?
Was it Daou? Was it Daou that did it?
It was Daou, I think it was. I can't remember. But you know what? Hey, it was if you weren't entertained watching that hockey, you should just give up on hockey. It really doesn't get much more entertaining than that.
And how fitting, Peter, and you know, I of course I have to tie it back to history. 38th anniversary of the Miracle on Ice.
Yeah.
Team USA, you know, the ladies win over Canada. It's, you know, and it's not a miracle, but you know, they've won 4 gold medals in a row, and they should tip your hat to them because that's a great organization and a great team. But you know, the U.S. wanted that victory, and they ended up getting it.
They did, and it was great. And there's no shame in that game for anyone.
And they beat Canada's ass in curling for the first time, for the second time in 3 days. And now they're going to get a chance at gold. Yes!
That is causing more
I can imagine.
up here right now. It's unreal. Like, there's going to be a national inquiry into the debacle of curling.
This is what I love about Canada. You know, like, I love this, the passion that Canada has for curling and hockey. You know, both. I'm just like, I love this stuff. Like, this is like, there was
and I live in literally probably the most hotbed of curling, and not only like it's nuts. The provincial government just in about last month even mentioned that they're going to be putting into a curling development program and facilities. It's crazy. And a former Manitoban who is a lady skip in Alberta, now is moving to Manitoba to form a super team to prepare for Beijing, and to make sure that Jennifer Jones, who's like the national hero in Winnipeg, doesn't get in. Like, it's nuts.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. In the United States, we have a commission when a president is assassinated. We have a commission when the Iran-Contra affair happens. Yes. In Canada, we have a commission when they lose in curling and when they lose in hockey in the Olympics.
Yeah, the hockey's not an issue, but the curling is. I know. There are some long knives out right now.
I live in the hotbed of lawn darts here in Montgomery County, and
I watched that lawn bowling in Minnesota. That's horrible. Lawn darts is no better.
Isn't it called bocce?
So here's the thing. I picked up my daughter from school just before we got on the air here, and I'm driving her home, and I'm explaining to her game because she obviously couldn't stay up last night, but she wanted to know all about it. So talking about it. And I said there was one moment last night that, and this is the last thing, we'll move on to rumors after this, but
you can tape it in a half hour. You know that, right?
What was that?
4 o'clock. You can tape it on NBCSN.
Oh, it's on. Yeah. Okay. So you got, you know, or if you have an internet device, you can watch it anytime too.
Just letting people know.
So, all right. So I'm watching, I'm telling her there's one moment that epitomized to me the difference that I've seen my whole life, you know, between Americans' view of hockey and Canadians' view of hockey. And it was really perfect. It was between the second and third period when they went to those two girls, and I can't remember their names. Gosh, the one who played for Canada and the one who played for the U.S.
Tessa Benham, right. And I cannot remember the American girl.
And it's funny the way they watching them interact.
Erica something, I know her.
Right, one of those. Watching them interact has been fascinating in general.
Yes,
because, you know, there's definitely, you can see like her saying that's such a Canadian way of looking at it, her saying that's such an American way of looking at it, and you can see it all the time, right? So they go to her first and they say, what does America need to do? And she says, well, we got to get the puck in, we got to drive to net, we got to keep it simple, we got to get that tie and goal, we got to chip it in and get that tie and goal. And they go to the Canadian girl, what does Canada have to do? Well, here's the thing, Canada doesn't want to win this game 2-1, we want to beat the Americans 5-1. So we got to keep pounding them down. And I know that sounds like a ridiculous thing in a way. But you know, I got to get out of here with my thing. But you know what I mean? There's Peter, to me, that was just such a moment of this is like the difference of how Canada looks at this, like how serious they are. We're not just going to win, we're going to kill them.
Yeah. And I think also because in the last series, the U.S. really beat down on Canada in a few games too. Like there was some, you know, in those pre-Olympic games back in November and stuff, they handed it to Canada on a couple of occasions. And, you know, that was the moment to say, do we have the right roster? And they probably should have tweaked it a little differently, but that's what they had. And hey, the better team won, and there's no shame in that.
To the wire. I mean, the U.S. did hit a crossbar in overtime. Like Canada took it down to the wire. I felt like the only coaching mistake, if you want to blame Canada's coaching for something, they were playing a sort of keep away. We're going to sort of wind down the clock system when they had the 2-1 lead and played completely safe without much offensive push. And then after that, they wore themselves out and didn't get much offensive push the rest of the game.
Okay, well, while we're waiting for Act to come back on, let's start talking about not rumors, but the trade that happened yesterday. Because, you know, whenever I think that we should like lay off the Arizona Coyotes and cut them some slack, they make a move that's utterly like blithering idiocy. Because the trade of Tobias Rieder and Scott Wedgwood for Darcy Kemper is that to me. I cannot believe
logic to it, Mike. And I mean, I've tried my best to and I know unless they've got something else, like
I can tell you the logic. You want to know what it is?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to
Nobody
know.
wants to hear it because this is just completely financial. Peter will like it, but he's the only one. He's on his own island. They got rid of 2 guys who are pending RFAs, so now they don't have to deal with them. And they got a cheap contract for the next 2 years on Darcy Kepner, who they plan on having be their number 1, and now they'll move out Ranta and save money. That's what they're going to do.
Well, okay, they'll move out Ranta. Remember, they traded their first-round pick, which ended up being Elias Anderson, to the Rangers in the deal to get Ranta, thinking that Ranta was the number 1. So right, I know, but I'm just saying as part of the deal.
Yeah.
Now their evaluation was Ranta could be their number 1. That has been a dismal failure. They misdiagnosed that situation. Now they're trying to recoup a draft pick, and if the talk about the Islanders is true, the Islanders have 2 firsts and 2 seconds. They're not giving up a first round pick for Antti Ranta. There's not a chance in hell. If Garceau does that, he should be fired immediately. But if they get a second round pick, then at least you get back something. And the thing about this, and as Russ was saying, Tobias Rieder, I think his contract is $2.4 million this year. To qualify him as an RFA, you have to give him a 10% increase. So you're talking 240. You're talking about $2.6 million. And obviously, from this deal, they didn't want to pay him that. So I don't get what Arizona's doing. They keep just cycling around, and it's a circular firing squad. They're destroying that organization. Every time you think something they're going in the right direction, they turn around and they're going backwards.
Well, they're saving money.
No, and Bob McKenzie came on last night and said right after this trade, and I mean, because I was as this trade was happening, I was about to post the fact that I heard the Islanders and Ranta were a thing, and then I got this text. I think Mike, you actually told me it. You texted me that this trade happened. I'm like, well, that makes now it's really coming into focus why the Islanders and Ranta are suddenly a thing. McKenzie comes on and says that the plan is to keep Ranta, to go with 2 goalies. I can't see that being possible, and I mean, I think I just from talking to people. I mean, does Ranta want to stay and be the backup on the worst team in the NHL?
No.
I mean, that doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, so like, it's one thing to be the backup on, the Penguins or whatever. It's another thing to be the backup on the Arizona Coyotes right now. And, I'm not trying to diss them. I'm just saying, the bottom line is, if you go to that team as a goalie, you sign there long-term if you can be the guy. But if you're not going to be the guy, then you're not signing there.
But don't we take Jake at his word and say, we want to have 2 solid goalies that we can go forward with, and now he's got it? Like, I mean, did he basically? I mean, and I'm just asking this in a sort of figurative sense. Yeah. Did he just come out to just kind of sell a story to give the media on the conference call and after a bit of meat on the bone to go with, and then he's going to do something else, or does he really believe that
today? He's not lying because it is that today.
Oh, no, he's not lying, and this is right.
Really a lot. Is he sort of deflecting until he does something else? Is maybe a better way.
This is what I think is he was trying to get. Now I know the Flyers talked to him about Ranta, and I know the first round draft pick was the asking price. Okay, so I found through through channels. So I know that's what they're trying to get for Ranta. So knowing that, knowing the Islanders have 2 picks, like you said, Mike, it makes some sense. Maybe they're talking to the Islanders, not thinking that the Flyers were like, no way are we giving a first round pick for Ranta. Right. So this whole thing to me feels like him basically is in the middle of negotiating, trying to trade this guy, gets another goalie, and realizes that by getting another goalie, he now has lessened his ability to trade Ranta for now he has to say he can keep him. He has to say that we're going to keep Ranta and he has to make people think that he's perfectly happy with that.
He's undercut his own leverage by doing this deal, and then the thing is like he's a UFA, so the clock is ticking, and that's why if there's anything to the Islanders thing, they have 2 firsts and 2 seconds from the Hamonic deal, so they have Calgary's first and second and their own first and second. I would say that Arizona could get 1 of the seconds, but if they hold out for a first, they're going to be left holding Ranta. And Russ, I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a UFA. He goes back to the Rangers as the backup.
He might. Ranta is now making less money than Darcy Kempner. I'm not even sure there's logic in that, and that's how you know Ranta is going to go.
He's got to go. He can't even.
They're going to get an asset for him. They're going.
Yeah, they're going to get something for him, and it might go down to to 3 o'clock on Monday or whatever. But they're gonna move him because makes no sense to hold on to him and get nothing for him. You're not going to be able to re-sign him because he's got to be pissed off that they traded for Darcy Kemper. He's not going to be thrilled about that. So I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, they're going to move him, and they've taken back their leverage. I did hear also.
Well, hold on, Eck. It looks like they also retained some salary on Tobias Rieder. So I just have to say,
God
bless the LA Kings, because there's still $333,000 retained for Arizona on Tobias Rieder. So
am I the only one who thinks Tobias Rieder's like really good player?
I know.
I mean, we're talking about like a top 6 player, like on almost any team in the NHL. Like, I really think that this is craziness. Like, to me, this.
When you consider what and
I would rather have Tobias Rieder than Rick Nash.
You have Tobias Rieder is a cheaper version of Michael Grabner in the sense that of what they gave up for him. But all you can say right now is LA, and you have to tip the hat to Rob Blake. He gets Dion Phaneuf. He gets rid of Gaborik's contract. He gets Dion Phaneuf at $2 million, a little over $2 million discount, and then he gets Tobias Rieder for a backup goaltender. And that organization is loaded with goaltending with Peterson and Campbell and now Wedgwood.
And they got him at a discount.
Yep.
And I'll throw this out there too, though. I think they got a discount. I mean, the Kings will go out. They will go out and get a goalie, though, because. I mean, the one thing Kemper was, don't you think they'll get a backup?
Wedgwood's a good backup. He's fine.
I mean, Kemper has been really good for them this year when Quick's been out.
They could call up Cal Peterson if they really need to for a backup. So either way, they're covered.
All right.
Yes.
I mean, I think that Quick. I would be surprised if they got somebody, but
I don't think they're going to.
The thing about Rieder is he helps LA because he can provide just a bit of speed and stuff. And the assumption is that he more than what he has been on a different team than Arizona. That's the gamble. That's the gamble. And if that's how Blake looked at it, and Chayka couldn't see that, that's the confusing part.
It's incredibly confusing. I mean,
and that's the thing. I mean, Rieder, from his underlying numbers, he kind of compares nicely with a top 9. So your 6 to 9 guy. So there's a lot of teams you can use guys like that. But what if he can be? But you give him some support and some talent, he could easily be a top 6 in the right situation.
He was one of the best players at the World Cup of Hockey. Don't forget that. Like, he was one of the best players in that tournament for Europe. He was just crazy good. And I mean, that was when he was playing with other talented players around him.
What is it that other general managers don't see when it comes to LA? And remember, this is the same organization that a few years ago, I don't remember what they got, but I think it was a 2nd or a 3rd round pick for Ben Scrivens, when Ben Scrivens' numbers were through the roof in LA because they have a good defense. They did the same thing with Kemper. And they turned Kemper into an asset. They had Martin Jones. They turned and Martin Jones is a good goaltender, but they turned that backup into an asset. They keep doing the same thing, and they could do the same thing with one of these other backups. They just keep doing it.
Well, the crazy thing is they're getting Jeff Carter back too, right? So they're going to have this is a serious shot in the arm. Yeah, I mean, you get Rieder, and now you add Rieder and Carter. You add a lot of speed to that team, like that team. Because LA's issue is they are slow. I mean, they are a slow team. But you bring Carter and Rieder in, suddenly that's a different world. I mean, they're not a slow team anymore, and they're right in the midst of this. I just don't understand it. I really am. I was just incredibly baffled by this trade.
Here's what I think's happening. So this year the cap floor was $55.4 million. They're at like 57 currently, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to sit right around that. When they get rid of Ranta, they'll be at like 56, and they'll still be able to collect what they can collect from the cap floor. Now, next year with the cap going up, they will have to, they probably have an RFA or two. They'll re-up those guys. They'll pick up a free agent, a cheap one, and that'll be it.
Right,
Russ. I don't even think they'll pick up a free agent. I think they'll trade for an injured player and have.
They have to. They have to ice a team unless they are planning on moving this team. They have to.
They'll trade for Zach Bogosian. That's what they'll do. They'll trade for Zach Bogosian.
Zach Ronaldo.
Yeah, and pay him $5 million. There you go.
$5 million. No, he was making $700, so he can get $750 next year.
I mean, they just traded, and now they're talking about, you're also hearing Max Domi's available.
I don't know if that's true.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's true right now, but I think at the draft he could be.
I think
he's an RFA, and Freddie Hamilton's an RFA. Those are their two RFAs. So it's not like they're loaded with RFAs.
No, but that's where you're. See, now maybe Domi's not on the block now because they have traded Rieder, but
Right.
that you just said the magic reason. He's an RFA. He had one really good year. He's had some trouble lately, but that one good year is going to get him. Now I think he's not coming off his entry level, so. Or maybe he is. If he is, then there's no arbitration. But he can ask for a lot more.
He is coming off his entry level.
Yeah. Okay. So then he has no arbitration rights. So if he asks for a couple million a year, and they don't want to pay him, then it's going to be a problem. So that they're trying to alleviate the problem.
They have 5 RFAs in 2019-20. Perlini, Dvorak, and Chikrin. Like, this is what happens when you're a team that is drafting and you don't spend enough to have veterans, then you are going to have a lot of RFAs. And so there's that this is the way the system works. And so all they're doing is treading water right now.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
I mean, so other things that are happening today.
Yep.
I heard so Evander Kane, obviously we've talked about it a lot. He's starting to talk like, well, I'm definitely gone. And he's starting to say, oh, this is fine. And, it's to be expected. But I still know they're not getting the draft picks that they've wanted to get for him. They're not getting where they wanted to go to. And then I finally heard today that the Penguins are considering a deal that would include Sprong to get Evander Kane.
Which makes sense because Botterill was an assistant GM in Pittsburgh and knows Sprong.
Yeah.
I would say it would take more than Sprong. I think it would probably take Sprong. Sprong and a second round pick might get it done.
Yeah. So this is this kind of thing. They're going to have to take a player back, and I think that's the Evander Kane in Pittsburgh, good fit.
No, but I mean they'll make it work, but it's not a great fit. No.
If you're Kane, how do you go into that locker room and disrupt that?
Well, no, you can't disrupt. That's the good news. I mean, you can't really disrupt it.
Right? You can't disrupt it, but you could annoy players if you're not playing full out or they don't feel like you're giving it your all, and Evander Kane sometimes doesn't. If
it can be disrupted, Peter, Evander Kane will find a way.
He can do it. I just think, like, given that he's in a contract year, given that he likes the limelight, he wants, he needs a lot of things to go right for him. I think Pittsburgh could be an interesting place simply because he doesn't have to be the showman,
right?
Because there's no way he's going to upstage but there's no way he's going to upstage Kessel, Crosby, and Malkin. Like, he's now an accessory part, whether he realizes it or not. But he's got all the upside to being an accessory part there. Like, and it's just a matter of someone getting into his head and saying, "You play this right, you're actually going to end up in a really good situation come the offseason."
Here's the most valid point, though, about Evander Kane, and this is what anybody who's trading for him has to understand. He has been going down, down, down every single season. Even this year, he still only got 39 points. He'll slightly beat last year in points, but he's got 19 goals compared to 28. Now, if you put him in Pittsburgh, it'll artificially inflate his numbers. But at the end of the day, this guy is not a great NHL talent anymore.
The last 2 seasons, he's been on a 30-goal pace.
Right.
And he had injuries and stuff. Evander Kane's an amazing talent. He's lacking something between the ears when it comes to focus and using his God-given talent. But, I don't think he's going down. And Buffalo's just...
Yeah.
Buffalo's been going down just as much as Kane has. Buffalo, this is the same situation as Rieder. But get him out of that, you're going to get more.
But Peter, the situation in Buffalo, I mean, Kane's slump predated Eichel getting hurt, so he stopped scoring a month ago. And
the last time he scored 30 goals was 2011 and 12. We've got to stop making excuses for this guy. He had 28 last year. He might get close to that this year, but he doesn't get any assists. Now in Pittsburgh, yes, his numbers will get artificially inflated, but at the end of the day, he's taking a pay cut. He's not getting $5 million.
Oh yeah, there's no question. But there will be a GM who will sign Evander Kane to a 3-year, $9 million deal. You can book it.
Sure.
No,
And
he won't.
it'll happen.
He won't settle for something that low. That's the Eric Stahl deal. Well, maybe, but let's look at this, and this is where I'm a little skeptical of this. But I'm skeptical of the rumor that had Grabner going to Pittsburgh too. He's not a center, right. And now maybe this is reflective of the fact that the center market sucks so bad that there's nothing out there. But I've heard out there that that Pittsburgh was kicking tires on Plekanec, but they don't want to take $6 million of his salary. They can only take probably half of it. But he's not that good either. So maybe that's reflective of they figured they just need to add the best forward, and then they can just go ahead with that.
No, I think that's where they are. I don't think there is a center out there that works for them. I mean, they've talked even about trying to get Cullen back. That's not happening either. So
no.
I mean, at the end of the day, there definitely isn't there's not the right fit for them at all. As far as centers go, but they do want to increase their scoring. Although
they know him.
The Penguins having to do that at all, or making any changes whatsoever, because they're on such a nice roll right now. If I'm them, I'm just staying the course.
They know Cullen. They know Cullen can play a fourth line role. It's just a question of whether Minnesota would be willing to trade him or not. And last time I heard, he was playing limited minutes and limited games. So I don't know what the situation is.
Minnesota knows how much they want him, and that the price is crazy, if what I've been told. So here's the next thing. Sam Bennett. Surprising. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that Bennett's name would come up, but he's the Bruins have had discussions, I'm told, with Calgary about him. Thoughts?
I think in past Buzzcasts we've talked about the fact that Sam Bennett might be that kind of player that just needs a bit of a change out of Calgary.
Yeah,
he hasn't been getting used as much as I think he should.
Yeah,
it hasn't been a good fit with Gulutzan for whatever reason, and whatever was lurking in there, the player the Flames thought they had with Sam Bennett 2 or 3 years ago isn't materializing with them. But I don't think it's a case where he wouldn't materialize elsewhere. But I don't know if they get the fair value for him right.
Well, I think they would get a second round pick and one of their 5 best prospects. That's what I think they would get.
Yeah.
Right, and see that's why I mean. Calgary's looking for scoring help. There's been talk about them looking for wingers, and we know that Bennett, former top 5 pick, he like you said, he needs a change of scenery. Him getting traded in a deal for with Montreal for a Pacioretty, that it would take more than just him, but that makes sense. I don't see where Boston, all Boston can give them is a draft pick and one of their prospects, and that doesn't seem to be the direction I would think that Treliving is wanting to go in Calgary. I would think he'd want to get somebody, who helps them. Now maybe he wants to recoup some of the draft picks that he traded in the Hamonic deal, and that I get that. But hey, how about Bennett for Max Domi? That might be a scenario where a young player for a young player, like that type of deal. Or
but they're not taking on his salary. That's the problem.
I think he's still on entry level, isn't he?
No, he's a little higher.
Oh, he signed the bridge deal. That's right.
Yeah. Another thing I'm hearing is that the Rangers have found, and I'm really surprised by this, they have found an offer that they like for Rick Nash, and that the Rangers will move Rick Nash. It's a matter of whether they find a better offer now. So they're in the process of.
I don't think that's shocking. I mean, Nash has a reputation. If we know anything, a lot of GMs will live off of reputation of a guy, hoping that they could revive him, rather than somebody who maybe has only had a good season or two like Grabner recently. And so that's where we're at with GMs, whether you think that's fair or not.
Yeah, Nash has his fans. There's no question about it. And then Nash has his fans out there, and he's a very polarizing player that way.
Peter, have you heard? Because I think it was Brian Lawton that came out yesterday and was very cryptic about a certain player who has a no trade clause has exercised that no trade clause for a certain team. It was something like that. But the speculation was it was Nash using the no trade clause to block going to Winnipeg. Have you heard that?
The reports out of here is that Winnipeg is on Nash's list of acceptable.
Oh, okay, good.
There seems to be no thing. We've heard Hoffman blocked Winnipeg.
Yeah, And I've heard
that's the only thing I know as of right now, unless something's changed. I know apparently Winnipeg was on Nash's acceptable list, and Hoffman had Winnipeg on his. But I believe if I recall correctly, Hoffman's was a prior list that they use, so you can always go back and say, "Hey, would you like another chance?" And right,
Winnipeg. I mean, they're one of the best teams in the NHL, so you would want to do that. For sure.
And the other player that apparently used his no trade clause to block something was Alex Edler. Apparently he did that. There was talk about him. I think it was Tampa Bay or something. Which would make sense. Tampa Bay's looking to add defensemen. So,
I mean, I saw Tommy Sepala tweeting, and he is in that market. He said they expected Edler to block, and so I don't think Edler's going anywhere.
Yeah.
Edler is following in the exact same footsteps as his former Swedish defenseman on the Canucks, Mattias Ohlund, who just loves the city. And Ohlund eventually left because Tampa offered him a boatload of money when he was a free agent. It was time to let him go, but loves the city. Same with the Sedins. Like, I think it fits in with their Swedish DNA, right?
Yeah, there's something. It's true. It's a very laid back place, and they just like it there. I mean, there's no question about it. That's really what it comes down to.
No, I know the Rangers called up Vinny Lettieri, Russ, and there's a lot of speculation coming out of the New York writers that they've, maybe it's the Nash deal that Eck is talking about, but they're also thinking that there's a deal in place for Grabner, and this is basically, this guy's being called up when this deal is made, and the deal might be made pretty soon.
It's one of them. I mean, they're playing Montreal tonight. We'll see if Nash is in the lineup. But it's one of them for sure.
And the first thing I thought of too, by the way, and just trying to connect this together, when I heard Evander Kane to Pittsburgh, I thought to myself, okay, this could be Pittsburgh also a little pissed off about the Grabner deal. Like that, I do think Grabner, I think, and this could be Pittsburgh saying, okay, well, we'll talk to somebody else and put it out there that we're talking to somebody else. And, and I still think that Grabner is actually the guy the Penguins want, but.
He could be, but you know what? It's not going to be easy for the Penguins to make a deal with the Rangers anyhow.
Right.
So the Rangers are going to make them jump through a certain amount of hoops.
I don't know where I heard this, Zach, where I heard it before, but all of a sudden these Ryan McDonough to Toronto rumors are popping up out of nowhere. Have you heard those?
No, I think I was I don't know. I didn't know how to say this kind of stuff, but I think I was one of the first people to talk about this last week. But yeah, and a lot of them, I've heard even the same thing, three-way thing that I've talked about before too, with Nash being England. I've heard that too. And McDonough now, it comes out. Pierre LeBrun wrote that McDonough, that Toronto's on the list of teams McDonough would go to. So you have that as well. So I think there's a hell of a lot to it. I really do. I'm starting to believe that he could end up there. It's going to take a lot to get it done, but I don't know. They're going to have somebody.
I was going to say, I just saw now, just checking, and it was from a while ago, but Todd Cordell tweeted out that on the latest 31 Thoughts podcast with Elliot Friedman, that he said New Jersey might be a dark horse for Evander Kane.
I can see that. I can see that for sure. I think Taylor Hall has been pushing for that, from what I heard. Taylor Hall's having a hell of a year.
Yeah.
He is.
And
by the way, here's a trade the Rangers and the Penguins made. It was 1995. They traded Sergei Zubov and Peter Nedved for Ulf Samuelsson and Luke Robitaille. And Luke Robitaille, I think, played 1 year in New York and had about 22 goals and was like a fish out of water. And then they had to deal him.
Okay, this is a preview for the deadline show, because what we're going to do is we're going to go back and pull up some deals from the past and grade them. So that's that.
Here's something I want to throw out there too, because this is so I've heard tonight as well that Patrick Maroon is not playing.
Yeah.
And they're saying he's got a minor lower body injury. Mike Green is not playing. Same kind of thing. Like, that's
the third game in a row that Green has not played.
Right. So, I mean, I think that, but Maroon not playing is pretty significant tonight. And I think that you're really getting close on those teams too. The question is, we're starting to talk about a lot of forwards: Nash, Grabner, Maroon, Kane, Pacioretty. Just go down, and then you throw that like Tobias Rieder, Vanek. There's other players too that are still out there, and there aren't that many teams looking for forwards.
True.
So there's going to be there's some.
I think only half of them get traded, to be honest.
No, and so I think what that means is going to be early trades. Like, I think you're going to see teams may try to make trades in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
There's only so many players out there that there's only like 4 teams that are looking for forwards, and there's probably 8 forwards. So, you can do the math. It's going to be a little crazy. I think Maroon not playing tonight is pretty significant. I wouldn't be surprised if by the time we talk tomorrow, Maroon's gone.
Yeah, and there's belief that the Jets have inquired about Maroon as well.
Yeah,
that's one thing that's come out is they've belief,
which I think is a good fit for them and a good fit for him. He's a good rental. He's a good rental for that situation. They want a first round draft pick for him, though. That's the thing. So, and that's why the other issue is, it's interesting when you see like Tobias Rieder thrown into this because, that tells me a little bit that the prices are so high that people are getting creative and looking for other options.
Mm-hmm.
Like that the Kings find somebody else than Rick.
Well, extrapolate that to. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, use that in the situation with McDonough. I mean, last week we heard about the offer that or what Gordon was looking for from Boston. Carlo, DeBrusque, and a draft pick, and Boston obviously went cheap and went for Nick Holden instead. So that probably takes Boston out of the running for McDonough, at least in the short term. Because if they were going to go for him, then they would have made that deal instead of the Holden deal.
Yeah.
If Tampa gets Mike Green, then the Rangers, if they don't like what the Leafs are offering, they may just hold on to McDonough for the rest of the year and then revisit in the summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that I still think that that's probably more likely than anything else. I still think that McDonough not being traded is more likely. That's the most, because this does feel like a get the temperature thing. However, and now so yesterday, Bob McKenzie comes out and says that he's 50-50 now on Erik Karlsson getting traded by the trade deadline. To which I responded, I'm 50-50 on him not getting traded by the trade deadline.
Okay. This is. I understand what Dorian is doing. He's doing his due diligence, and any general manager should do that. But to ask for 5, 6, 7 pieces for Karlsson, as McKenzie is indicating, and I have to say that if that's the case, because Bob McKenzie is as good as it gets when it comes to getting information out, but that is patently absurd, especially when you're throwing out that you have to take Bobby Ryan's albatross of a contract. It's ridiculous.
That has actually explored this, and that's the Edmonton Oilers. They actually explored the idea of Karlsson and Bobby Ryan together.
Sure, I could see it because there are things that Ryan can do for them still, and they don't score goals. He can score goals. And with Karlsson, I will tell you this: I would say Karlsson and McDonough are definitely out for Tampa because Yzerman said he's not dealing anybody off the current roster. So Mike Green might be the only player they can get that you could only deal not off the current roster. So he's not really getting anybody else.
All right, but let's throw this out there. If Edler turned down a trade there, maybe Yzerman's not shooting so high, and maybe Yzerman's he's just looking at getting a 5-6. He's looking at getting another.
Sure. Yeah,
but Edler's not a 5-6. He's still a 4.
Okay, but but see, this is why I think Jarmelsson's a good fit for Tampa at the end of the day. I think that's where they can go because they have the option of got experience. He's a good player, but you don't have to give up a first round draft pick to get him. But then what happens to Mike Green? Because Detroit is trading Mike Green. There's no 2 ways about it.
Yeah, well, if it doesn't go to Tampa, and I still think it makes sense because if you take Yzerman's statement into account, they probably give up a 1 and a guy like an Adam Ernie or somebody like that. A guy who's been up and.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
All right, so Boston Bruins trade Frankie Vetrano to the Panthers for a 3rd round pick. Now, we have to give the Panthers their due. They're on a roll.
Yeah.
Luongo is in there. And now they're picking up some offense. Dale Tallon may be pulling a rabbit out of his hat late in the season here to make a playoff run.
You're clearing
Petrano, at the time we're talking about them possibly. They give up Petrano at the time we're basically possibly getting Bennett too.
Sure.
You're clearing a contract. You're clearing a salary. I can't look at Cap Central to know what Petrano's making, but I would be surprised if it's over $1 million. And honestly, I think the Bruins are signing Jarome Iginla. I really do.
I do too. I'm with you. I'm with you
I
100%.
think it's a mistake, but they might. But the point is, regardless of Boston out of this, we've got to now look at Florida and say Florida can make another move or two if they really want to. They it's not like they're hurting as far as financially because they are covered by the state for the next couple of years. Dale Talon could possibly pull something off here.
But Toronto
Russ,
is
we know
800,000, Mike. You're right. So he's
Okay.
792.5. So
yeah, and that if you're paying a minimum deal to Iginla, then that makes sense. And Russ, what we were just talking about in terms of the market and what's out there, it's all wingers. And we know that the Panthers, they need wingers. They don't need centers. They need scoring wingers. So if Kane or Nash or if they don't go to certain places, Florida might be that stealth team that just comes up in the 11th hour and gets that player.
Yeah, and I also just got a text too that McDonough and Boston isn't done, even though they already made a trade for a defenseman there. So even though
I think it's done. It makes no sense whatsoever to trade for Nick Holden if you're still in on Ryan McDonough. What the hell are you going to do with Nick Holden? I'm sorry. I dispute that.
Are you moving him someplace else? We have a lot of GMs who are trying to be more creative right now. From what I've been told, there's a lot of interesting, different kinds of. We've seen more three-way deals in the last couple of years than we have ever seen. And we're starting to see things like that come to fruition. And it's good what you have to do in the cap space world. So, I look at something like that. I say, well, maybe they don't know if they're going to get McDonough, but if they do, they can move him. They can move, the other guy someplace else.
Well,
no.
One thing that's possible of this whole Carlson Bobby Ryan deal, and again, I don't expect Carlson to be traded before Monday, but that's just my own personal opinion. But if they're laying the ground for you got to take Bobby Ryan's deal involving Carlson, then it could be a situation where a team trades for Bobby Ryan, retains a couple $1 million, and then ships him off someplace else, like New Jersey or Philadelphia, which we've heard him going there for years and years.
Here's I just got a text from somebody. Check this out. So they say to me, they're watching the show. This is a scout for a pro team out west. One of the Canadian Western teams. So you can pick your one of your four. And he says to me that he's watching the show and he says, you guys are missing the point. If Carlson is going somewhere for 5 or 6 players, he's not going to a playoff team. And
that's fair. That's definitely. I understand I agree with what he's saying. Yeah, because we're just assuming that, and it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, just don't drive around.
He's going to the Coyotes. He's going to the Coyotes.
I mean, he could be.
He very well could be, and maybe Oliver Ekman-Larsson's going back the other way in the deal. I mean, because that's been talked about too, right? That that if you're Ottawa, that makes some sense. I mean, if you can get Larson plus a lot more,
sure,
you're saving money on you don't have to pay. You're going to have to pay Larson a lot, but you're not going to have to pay him. What you're going to have to pay Carlson, and how much are you losing? 20-30%. Larson's up there. He's a good defenseman.
He's not Erik Karlsson.
He's not Erik Karlsson. He's not Erik.
Well, nobody is.
He's not it.
Nobody is.
He's not Erik Karlsson, and you're pissing off both guys. Ekman-Larsson likes Arizona, but probably won't stay there because the organization is a joke.
It'll suck to pay $10 million a year for Erik Karlsson to live in Arizona, Mike.
You know what, though? Here's the thing. Ottawa pissed off Daniel Albertson. He left. He came back, and then they pissed him off again. Even if you piss off a guy, they still come back. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the question is, you would assume Karlsson wants to go someplace where he can win, right?
Right. But he might have to live out his contract in a place like Arizona. It is possible.
Yeah, I mean, if I was to take one player over Karlsson, there is one player that I put on his level, and probably you guys wouldn't agree, but I actually think Victor Hedman is close. He's the one guy. He's the one guy I feel like is close to Karlsson.
I would say Doughty.
I think he's ahead of Doughty.
I would say Doughty too, but honestly I think at this point with the ankle surgery, with the Achilles, and all the things that Karlsson's been through, and Hedman being a giant, I think Hedman's on an equal level or maybe even better than Karlsson right now.
Yeah, I don't think so. Not yet.
I'm and I know talk about the World Cup hockey a lot because covering the World Cup hockey, I got to see different players in different situations. But those two defensemen were obviously the top two defensemen for Sweden.
Sure.
And Hedman was better. He was better. He was just better. I mean, he was just better overall. He was more solid. He made better defensive plays. Karlsson can try to do too much sometimes. He can try. He twists and turns himself around a little bit. Mm-hmm. Hedman was solid, and he's young. He's so much.
But the World Cup of hockey also is its own event too.
It is.
Yes, you can't. I don't weight that as much as. I mean, when Hedman puts a team on his back like Karlsson did last spring, and guides you to the conference final, then I think we can start saying they're the same. But I mean, if you're gonna make a top five, you're gonna argue about those two and where they stand in the top five of the D in the NHL.
Yeah. I think that.
Right. Who's your top five? Karlsson in no order. Karlsson, Hedman, Doughty, Subban.
Subban's in there, yeah.
PK. I would made not top five.
Who else?
Yossi.
I would put Yossi there.
Hamilton. No.
I think might be up there already.
Ekblad. No, Duncan Keith. I probably put Burns over.
Ekblad, I think.
Yeah.
Ekblad when he's
healthy. So right, and that's why I say top five. Like top 10's easy to do because you can always have your bottom three, but top five, that's the elite of the elite, right?
Yeah.
And that's Hedman's in there for sure, but I don't know where he is in there.
No, I don't know if this is just like. And I don't blame the insiders out there that are sort of teasing this for the shows on Monday. But everybody is saying that there's a big deal coming down that nobody is going to expect.
Yep.
That nobody's expecting. And it would be nice to have a little specificity there.
This is like a kind of a fun thing to share. Like this is a little inside baseball, but like in my world, okay. This came out 2 days. Let's say Tuesday. Okay, so 2 days ago. When I was talking to people, I heard that all day, and I've heard it before. It happens, but what's funny is people don't realize that the rumor world is such that the people I'm talking to are telling me stuff that are also just rumors that they're hearing from like GMs will pass rumors along that they think. So something like that can build its own momentum, and like everybody's like, oh, there's a big trade no one's known about, and that was a big trade. Here's something big out west. Something coming out. It's like, and suddenly before you know it. It's like created this entire world for itself. And then in my job, I always try to like trace it back to a source. Well, who'd you hear that from? Okay. So I talk to that person. Who'd you hear that from? You go back to source and try to find. And that bigger that this time, the reason I didn't write about it was it went back to a GM who loves to start crap. Like where I got back to was a GM who just absolutely loves to screw with insiders. So I think he told a bunch of other GMs and suddenly, before you know it, that he just wanted to get that out there. So the fact that that's coming out at all, Mike, is hilarious to me because I hadn't heard it was actually coming out.
Yeah, Lou.
What happened? Oh man, lost you, Mike. Sorry.
I said Lou is such a devil.
No, it's not Lou. It's not Lou. Nope.
I know. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Not that I would say if it was, but it's not Lou. All right. Okay. That's all the time we have for today. But the Flyers, if you're interested, like Russ is off to the Flyers game. Mrazek's going tonight against Columbus, who, by the way, is now trying to sign Jack Johnson to an extension.
No, he could use the money, and I hope he gets it.
You gotta love when a guy who asked to be traded is negotiating an extension. Just throw that out there. Like this is something that you don't see very often. For what it's worth, he did ask to be traded.
He has to be traded because he wanted to sign an extension and they were dragging their feet.
Now they do. So thanks, Peter.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Talk to you guys soon. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. Enjoy the games tonight. It's going to be fun. Stay tuned to Hockey Buzz. Lots of stuff coming up. Talk to you soon.